Hello, today we're going to be unboxing the MacBook Air once again. The reason we're doing that is because after using it for about 3 or 4 weeks or so, my mum, you can't see but she's over there, she thought it was very cool, so she wanted one as well. So I'm going to be unboxing that today. Alrighty, so it's open now, and now that I've done this before, I should be better at it. So, although this bit is always harder than it looks, believe me. One thing I thought would be interesting to show you guys was I noticed the texture of this is the front of the box, and if you flip it over the lid, this texture is really interesting because it's kind of like polystyrene, but it's more reinforced, and it feels like it could almost be like a chalkboard of sorts, which I think is just a nice touch, I guess. Let's have a look. Alrighty. Okay, where do I put this? I'll put this over here. And let's see where we have. So, got what we'd expect, and I'll lay it out so you guys can see the charging cable. It's pretty long, which is important because you don't want a shorter one. You have the warranty, that sort of stuff. Underneath, you'll find the wall mount, and it's a good wall mount, and that's about it. There's nothing else in the case as far as I know. Let's move it out of the frame. Facing me. Very cool.
To use English as the main language, press the return key.
So, there's a lot I want to get into here. Actually, I did think of some things I wanted to talk about, specifically around the keyboard and the display, but we'll get to that later. I think what might be most important.
Use Australian English as the main language, press the return key.
Let's just get through this. But after we get through this, I want to show you some things about the Mac, which coming over from Windows I found were very compelling features, which, you know, I've really enjoyed, and my enjoyment has caused my mom to want to get the MacBook, so I think you'll be interested. But let me get it set up first, and then we'll see what to do next. So there's our password. Awesome. Good. Data and privacy, not now, and set up later. Skip. Okay, I agree. Okay, so since this is for my mom, I'm going to fill in her details, and we can do, so it's just loading now, and there we go. Alright, express setup, sure. Yeah, why not? Continue, okay. Don't really use Siri, but I'm hoping one day we can use Siri, but won't do that right now. Not now. Just want to get to the home page. and we'll do Touch ID later. Alrighty, so now that we got to the home page, what I really wanted to tell you guys about is, number one, coming from Windows and coming from Lenovo laptops where the display is not the strongest in terms of brightness, I am really attracted to the display on the Apple products, because it might not come off as well in the camera, but if you're actually in a room with, let's say, a bunch of these laptops versus a bunch of comparable spec Windows PCs or Windows laptops, I think it's really quite obvious the difference. Like, for example, earlier today I was in Officeworks, which is a store which sells computers. I want to tell you guys about an experience I had earlier today where I was at Officeworks. It's this department store that sells laptops, and there was the Apple devices in one section and the Windows laptops in another section. And just walking by the row of laptops, all of them with displays on, it was super obvious, at least to me, the difference the Apple laptops have on their display. It seemed a lot brighter, things seemed more crisp, and it just seemed nicer to look at. Now, maybe this is simply placebo, but I think I've heard from a lot of sources, like anecdotally, that Apple displays really are something else, and I think that's something you will definitely notice if you're coming over from PC. That's just one thing I wanted to talk about. Another thing I want to talk about, but you're gonna have to see the keyboard for this. So yeah, so it'd be great if we could bring the camera over and to the laptop keyboard, because that's what I wanted to focus on. Now, these are the new keys, or I guess they're the butterfly switch keys. And the thing about them initially going in, what I thought was that these keys were going to be sort of not super comfortable to type on, especially because I was coming over from a keyboard with lots of travel. However, I found that I was wrong, because I actually really do enjoy typing on these keys. It feels like, and what I do find is that even though the keys look like, hoping you can see this, it doesn't look like much travel at all, which I thought was something that was going to be super important for me. Actually, as I said, it makes typing really quite enjoyable, really fun, whereas in previous laptops it felt more of an exercise. For this, it feels like something light, fun, bouncy, and I find myself wanting to type on this keyboard, wanting to, if I have to write something, to do it on this keyboard, just because it's so nice. And that concludes my argument about why this keyboard is amazing. However, there's one more thing, and it's this button right here. So if you haven't used or haven't seen this laptop before, you might not know what this is. This is the Touch ID button. It also serves as a button to go to the off screen. So this little button right here is going to primarily be your Touch ID sensor. However, have a look at this. And boom, it goes to the lock screen. Okay, so one thing I found was very cool was this. So let me just show you. So you have your laptop here. Maybe you've just taken it out of your bag because you want to add something to your document, which is something I do a lot. And then all you have to do, you open it up, and then boom, the screen goes on. And I cannot tell you how amazing this was to me. No one told me about this, but apparently with Macs, shutting them off isn't something you do regularly. It's more of you just close the display and put it wherever it needs to be. Now, with my old laptop, which I've had for about 4 years, and the laptops before that, the mode was a lot different. It was more like I open it up, right? And then the screen is black, and then it turns to the lock screen, and then I type in the password, or I use the sensor but then the sensor takes a while to verify, a couple of seconds, and then Windows thinks about it, and then it goes into the desktop. And I thought that was just the norm. I thought that's what everyone did. But apparently, with MacBooks, they just do this. So, I don't know why Windows doesn't do this. I'm sure it can, but I really do prefer having the option for it to instantly go on. It's like an iPad. There's no delay. So if you're indecisive like me, then it's really helpful. And I think that's something you should keep in mind. There are a lot of little things like this, which really I think is why Apple has so many fans in general, because their products delight their customers in a way that many other similar, perhaps comparably spec'd products don't manage to achieve. With the App Store, so I've talked a lot about the keyboard, about the display, about all the physical components. I want to dive into the software a little bit, because this is somewhere where I always thought that Windows was superior because there's a lot of customizability in Windows. However, what I've discovered is that I actually really appreciate how integrated the apps are, all the apps are for MacBook. For example, the App Store on Mac is actually very useful. For example, when I wanted to look up, it was a Pomodoro timer. So this is just a quick timer. And you see all of these apps in front of you, so I'll scroll through them. Every single one of these apps has been vetted by Apple, right? And what that means is they've screened it carefully to make sure it functions well within the Mac OS, right? And the good thing about this is that every single one of these apps, pretty much, for it to have made it onto the App Store, is polished and will run smoothly and beautifully on your Mac, because otherwise it wouldn't be there. The difference is, and you might not know this if you've never used Windows, when I was trying to install a Pomodoro timer on my Windows laptop, the trouble I had was, it was kind of like I had to do the foraging myself. I had to go on Google, I had to look it up, I had to look at reviews, and then find one that was free and open source so I could trust it, and then download it. And then even after all that, the application I got was far less, to be honest, far less pretty and far less integrated than the one I got just by doing a quick search on the App Store. And this is something that compounds over time. It's not just with a Pomodoro timer. The App Store has plenty of apps for all kinds of purposes. And I think it's really what makes Apple, I guess, an enduring power. It's why their laptops continue to do well, because people get used to having everything just work so well that when they switch to another platform they're not familiar with, it seems kind of odd and imperfect. So I suppose that's one area which I didn't realize until I actually started using the MacBook, and I thought it would be valuable for me to share with you before you make your decision. So that has been my review of this MacBook Air. Now I know this review hasn't been super heavy on the specifications or the super nitty-gritty details, but I think you can find all of those things on the Apple website and elsewhere on other videos. What I really wanted to do was to give you kind of an experience of particularly how this compares with Windows PCs, especially if you're considering making the jump. It's something I would highly advise you to give it a crack, because at this price point, it feels like a no-brainer. I got this model for $14.39. That was with a student discount. But if you can get a student discount, get a friend to help you get the student discount. It's really a no-brainer at this price point. If you don't like it, you can return it. If you don't like it, you can get a Windows. But I feel like, having tried this MacBook Air, I think it's something I can, without hesitation, recommend to pretty much anyone. So that's the review, I guess.